Hello everyone, and welcome back to Twisted Tales, the channel where we delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche. We explore stories that blur the line between love and obsession, passion and psychosis. The story we are about to unfold is a chilling testament to how a seemingly perfect life can unravel into a nightmare of deceit, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. It's a tale that will make you question how well you truly know the people you share your life with. Before we dive into this harrowing narrative, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our gripping stories. Now, prepare yourselves as we unravel the shocking case of the fitness trainer's secret, a story that begins with a stolen glance and ends in a shallow grave. The suburban dream was a meticulously crafted illusion, and for a long time, Amelia Hawthorne was its most devoted architect. Her life, from the outside, was a portrait of serene domesticity. The two-story house on Maple Lane, with its manicured lawn and a porch swing that swayed gently in the afternoon breeze, was the envy of the neighborhood. Her husband, Richard, a man whose presence was as steady and predictable as the morning sun, provided a comfortable life. He was an accountant, a creature of habit and spreadsheets, his love for her a quiet, unassuming hum in the background of their lives. He was a good man, a kind man, but for Amelia, his goodness had become a suffocating blanket of beige. Amelia, with her Botticelli curls and eyes the color of a summer sky, was a splash of vibrant color in their monochromatic world. She had once been a dancer, her body a vessel of grace and passion, but the rhythm of her life had slowed to a monotonous crawl. The pirouettes had been replaced by PDA meetings, the passionate crescendos by the gentle hum of the dishwasher. She loved her two children, of course, with a fierce and primal instinct. But their needs, their schedules, their very existence had chipped away at her own identity, leaving her feeling like a ghost in her own life. The woman who once commanded a stage now felt invisible, her desires and dreams relegated to the dusty attic of her memory. The discontent began as a low, persistent hum, a dissonant note in the symphony of her perfect life. It was a feeling she couldn't quite articulate, a yearning for something more, something that would make her feel alive again. She would stand in her pristine kitchen, the scent of freshly baked cookies filling the air, and feel a profound sense of emptiness. She would watch Richard across the dinner table, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the overhead light, and see not the man she had fallen in love with, but a stranger who shared her bed and her mortgage. The love was still there, she supposed, but it had become a comfortable habit, a well-worn sweater that offered warmth but no longer thrilled. It was this gnawing emptiness that led her to Phoenix Fitness, a state-of-the-art gym that had recently opened in the town's trendy new commercial district. The name itself was a siren call, a promise of rebirth and transformation. Amelia, who had not seen the inside of a gym since her college days, found herself drawn to its sleek glass facade and the vibrant energy that seemed to emanate from within. She told herself it was about getting back in shape, about reclaiming a piece of her pre-motherhood self. But deep down, she knew she was searching for something more, a spark to reignite the dying embers of her spirit. The moment she walked through the doors of Phoenix Fitness, she felt a jolt of electricity. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and ambition, the thumping bass of the music a stark contrast to the quietude of her suburban home. And then she saw him. Julian Croft was not just a fitness trainer, he was a force of nature. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, his body a sculpted masterpiece of muscle and sinew. His smile was a flash of white in a sun-kissed face, and his eyes, the color of dark chocolate, seemed to hold a universe of secrets. He was leading a high-intensity interval training class, his voice a commanding baritone that cut through the music. He moved with an effortless power that was both intimidating and alluring. Amelia, who had intended to quietly disappear onto a treadmill in the corner, found herself mesmerized. She watched him for the entire hour, her heart pounding in a rhythm that had nothing to do with exercise. Her first few weeks at the gym were a tentative dance of avoidance and observation. She would choose machines that offered a clear view of Julian, her workouts timed to coincide with his classes. She would watch him interact with his clients, his easy charm and infectious laughter drawing people to him like moths to a flame. He had a way of making everyone feel seen, of making them feel like they were the most important person in the room. And Amelia, who had felt invisible for so long, yearned for a sliver of that attention. The opportunity came one Tuesday afternoon. She was struggling with the lat pull-down machine, the weight stubbornly refusing to budge. A voice, smooth as velvet, cut through her frustration. "You're using too much of your back. Here, let me show you." It was Julian. He stood behind her, his presence a palpable heat. He gently placed his hands on her shoulders, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "Relax your shoulders," he murmured, his voice close to her ear. "Engage your core. Feel the squeeze in your lats." His proximity was intoxicating. She could smell the faint scent of his cologne, a heady mix of citrus and spice. She was acutely aware of the warmth of his hands on her skin, of the solidness of his chest against her back. In that moment, the sterile environment of the gym faded away, and she was aware of nothing but the man standing behind her. That was the beginning. What started as a casual training tip blossomed into a series of conversations. Julian had a knack for making her feel special. He would seek her out, his smile a private conspiratorial wink. He would ask her about her day, about her children, about the dreams she had locked away. He listened, truly listened, with an intensity that made her feel like the most fascinating woman in the world. He saw the dancer in her, the artist, the woman she had forgotten she was. Their conversations were a lifeline in the sea of her mundane existence. She found herself looking forward to her gym sessions with a feverish anticipation. The gym, once a symbol of her quiet desperation, had become her sanctuary, her escape. It was a world where she was not just a wife and a mother, but Amelia, a woman with desires and a past. The affair did not begin with a passionate tryst in a darkened room. It began with stolen glances across the crowded gym floor, with lingering touches that sent electric currents through her veins, with conversations that delved into the intimate corners of their souls. It was a slow burn, a delicious and dangerous dance of seduction. The first time they met outside the gym, it was for coffee. It was a public place, a safe space, but the air between them crackled with an illicit energy. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing as effortlessly as the coffee they drank. He told her about his dreams of opening his own gym, of traveling the world. She told him about her passion for dance, about the life she had left behind. He reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb tracing a slow circle on her palm. "You have sad eyes, Amelia," he said, his voice a gentle caress. "But there's a fire in them too. I see it." No one had ever looked at her like that, with such raw, unadulterated admiration. No one had ever seen the fire she thought had long been extinguished. In that moment, with his hand in hers, the last of her resistance crumbled. The physical affair began a week later. Richard was away on a business trip, a common occurrence that had once filled her with a sense of loneliness, but now presented an intoxicating opportunity. Julian came to her house, the house on Maple Lane, the carefully constructed symbol of her perfect life. He walked through the rooms that Richard had paid for, his presence a thrilling violation of the sanctity of her home. Their lovemaking was a tempestuous storm, a release of all the pent-up passion and frustration that had been simmering beneath the surface of her placid existence. With Julian, she was not a wife or a mother. She was a woman, a sensual being, her body a canvas for his desires. He awakened a part of her she thought was long dead, a primal, insatiable hunger that both thrilled and terrified her. In the afterglow of their passion, lying tangled in the sheets of her marital bed, a sliver of guilt pierced through the haze of her euphoria. The scent of Julian's cologne, a scent that had once been a source of intoxicating pleasure, now seemed to mock her, a fragrant reminder of her betrayal. The house, her sanctuary, now felt like a crime scene, the silence a deafening accusation. She looked at Julian, his handsome face relaxed in sleep, and a wave of fear washed over her. Who was this man who had so easily dismantled the carefully constructed walls of her life? What had she unleashed? But then he stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He smiled, a slow, lazy smile that melted the icy fear in her veins. He pulled her close, his lips finding hers in the darkness, and the guilt, the fear, the nagging voice of her conscience were all silenced by the intoxicating roar of her desire. The affair became her secret obsession, a clandestine world she retreated to when the crushing weight of her reality became too much to bear. Her days were a carefully orchestrated performance of domestic bliss. She would make breakfast for her children, her hands still tingling from the memory of Julian's touch. She would kiss Richard goodbye, the taste of her lover's lips still lingering on her own. She would go about her day, a serene smile plastered on her face, while her mind replayed every stolen moment, every whispered word, every illicit touch. The deception was a heavy cloak, but she wore it with a surprising ease. The guilt was a constant companion, a dull ache in the pit of her stomach, but it was a small price to pay for the intoxicating thrill of her secret life. She was living a double life, a dangerous and exhilarating game of her own making. But secrets, like cracks in a dam, have a way of spreading. The initial thrill of the affair began to give way to a gnawing anxiety. The logistics of their clandestine meetings became more complicated, the lies more elaborate. She was constantly on edge, her phone a source of both pleasure and terror. A text from Julian would send a jolt of excitement through her, but it would also be a potential piece of evidence, a digital breadcrumb leading back to her betrayal. Richard, in his oblivious goodness, became a constant source of irritation. His predictable routines, his gentle affection, his unwavering trust, all served as a painful reminder of her deceit. His touch, once a source of comfort, now felt like a violation. His love, once a source of security, now felt like a cage. She began to see him through Julian's eyes, through the lens of their passionate affair. He was no longer the steady, reliable man she had married. He was boring, predictable, a man who had let the spark in their marriage die. She began to resent him, to see him as an obstacle to her happiness, a jailer in the prison of her perfect life. The seeds of discontent, once a quiet hum in the background of her life, had grown into a monstrous, all-consuming weed, choking the life out of everything she had once held dear. The woman who had once been the devoted architect of her suburban dream was now plotting its demolition, brick by treacherous brick. The affair with Julian had been a spark, but it had ignited a wildfire that was threatening to consume her and everyone in her path. And in the heart of that inferno, a dark and terrifying thought began to take root, a thought that would forever alter the course of her life and seal the fate of the man who had once been her world. The suburban dream was about to become a suburban nightmare, and Amelia Hawthorne, the beautiful wife on Maple Lane, was about to become its most terrifying monster. The affair, once a thrilling escape, had morphed into a complex and demanding second life. The initial euphoria had given way to the gnawing, ever-present fear of discovery. Every ping of her phone sent a jolt of adrenaline through her veins. Every unexpected knock on the door made her heart leap into her throat. The web of lies she had so carefully woven was becoming increasingly intricate, its threads threatening to unravel with the slightest tug. Amelia, once the master of her meticulously ordered world, now felt like a tightrope walker, precariously balanced between her two realities. On one side was the sun-drenched, predictable landscape of her life with Richard and the children. It was a world of school runs, soccer practice, and family dinners, a world where she was the picture of domestic perfection. On the other side was the shadowy, intoxicating world of her affair with Julian. It was a world of stolen moments, whispered promises, and a passion so intense it threatened to consume her. The constant toggling between these two worlds was taking its toll. She was perpetually exhausted, her mind a chaotic whirlwind of schedules, alibis, and carefully crafted excuses. The strain began to show in subtle ways. There were dark circles under her eyes, a new brittleness in her voice, a nervous energy that hummed just beneath the surface of her serene facade. Richard, in his gentle, unassuming way, noticed the change. He attributed it to stress, to the demands of motherhood, to the vague and mysterious ailments that he believed afflicted women. He would watch her with a worried frown, his brow furrowed with a concern that only served to heighten her guilt and her resentment. "You seem tired, honey," he would say, his voice laced with a genuine but, to Amelia, infuriating solicitude. "Maybe you should take a break from the gym. You're pushing yourself too hard." His words, meant to be comforting, felt like an accusation. The gym was her sanctuary, her only escape from the suffocating banality of her life with him. The thought of giving it up was unthinkable. "I'm fine, Richard," she would snap, her voice sharper than she intended. "Just a little stressed, that's all." He would retreat, wounded by her uncharacteristic anger, and she would be left with the bitter taste of her own cruelty. The guilt was a venomous serpent, coiling around her heart, but her desire for Julian was a powerful antidote, a drug that numbed the pain and kept her coming back for more. Julian, meanwhile, was a master of manipulation, his charm a potent weapon in his arsenal of seduction. He had a way of making her feel like the center of his universe, his love a grand and epic passion that eclipsed the quiet, unassuming affection of her husband. He would shower her with compliments, his words a balm to her bruised and neglected ego. He would listen to her complaints about Richard, his expression a perfect blend of sympathy and righteous indignation. "He doesn't appreciate you, Amelia," he would murmur, his voice a seductive whisper in her ear. "He doesn't see the incredible woman you are. He's content to let you wither away in this gilded cage he's built for you." His words were a poison, seeping into the cracks of her already fractured marriage, turning her discontent into a festering resentment. He painted Richard as a villain, a passionless and oblivious jailer who was standing in the way of their happiness. And Amelia, desperate for a narrative that would justify her betrayal, eagerly embraced this twisted version of reality. The affair intensified, the stolen moments becoming more frequent, the risks more audacious. They would meet in secluded parks, in cheap motel rooms on the outskirts of town, their passion fueled by the thrill of the illicit. They were a whirlwind of clandestine meetings and whispered phone calls, their lives a carefully choreographed dance of deception. The financial strain of their affair began to add another layer of complexity to their already complicated lives. The motel rooms, the secret gifts, the dinners in out-of-the-way restaurants all came at a price. Julian, with his modest income as a fitness trainer, began to hint at his financial struggles, his a carefully calibrated performance of vulnerability. "I wish I could give you the world, Amelia," he would say, his eyes filled with a theatrical sadness. "I wish I could whisk you away from all this, to a place where we could be together without all the secrets and the lies. But I'm just a gym trainer. I can't compete with what he can give you." His words were a subtle but effective form of manipulation, a way of highlighting the stark contrast between his own financial limitations and Richard's comfortable wealth. He was planting a seed, a dangerous and insidious idea that would begin to take root in the fertile ground of Amelia's desperation. The idea, when it first entered her mind, was a fleeting and horrifying thought, a dark specter that she quickly pushed away. But it was a persistent and seductive whisper, a promise of a future where she could have both Julian and the comfortable life she had grown accustomed to. A future without Richard. The thought, once unthinkable, began to seem like a viable, even necessary, solution to her problems. Richard, the man she had once loved, the father of her children, was no longer a person in her mind. He was an obstacle, a problem to be solved, a barrier to the life she believed she deserved. The transformation from a discontented wife to a potential murderer was not a sudden leap but a slow and insidious descent. It was a journey fueled by a potent cocktail of passion, resentment, and the seductive whispers of a master manipulator. Julian, with his carefully chosen words and his theatrical displays of affection, was the architect of her moral decay. He had found the cracks in her soul and had expertly chiseled them into a gaping abyss. The planning began in whispers, in late-night conversations shrouded in the darkness of their motel rooms. It was Julian who first gave voice to the dark thoughts that had been swirling in Amelia's mind. He spoke of it in hypotheticals at first, in a what-if scenario that was both shocking and strangely alluring. What if he were just gone? He had whispered one night, his breath warm against her ear. What if we could be together, without all the secrets, without the fear of being discovered? Amelia had feigned shock, a gasp of theatrical outrage. But a part of her, a dark and treacherous part, had thrilled at the suggestion. The seed he had planted had taken root, its tendrils wrapping around her heart, choking out the last vestiges of her conscience. The hypothetical conversations soon gave way to more concrete planning. Julian, with his knowledge of human anatomy and his access to the gym's resources, began to research methods of murder that would be difficult to trace. He spoke of poisons, of staged accidents, of a perfect crime that would leave them free to live the life they had always dreamed of. Amelia, once a woman who would have recoiled in horror at the thought of such a thing, now found herself an active and enthusiastic participant in these macabre discussions. She had crossed a moral event horizon, a point of no return. The love she had once felt for Richard had curdled into a cold and calculating hatred. He was no longer her husband, the father of her children. He was a symbol of her wasted life, a living, breathing reminder of the dreams she had sacrificed. The plan they settled on was both simple and chillingly audacious. It was a plan that would require a level of cold-blooded deception that Amelia, just a few months prior, would have thought herself incapable of. But the woman she had once been was gone, replaced by a stranger with ice in her veins and murder in her heart. The final weeks leading up to the murder were a blur of heightened emotions and meticulous planning. Amelia was a study in contrasts, her outward demeanor a picture of serene domesticity, while her inner world was a maelstrom of anxiety and anticipation. She went through the motions of her life with a chilling precision, her every action a carefully rehearsed performance. She would cook Richard his favorite meals, her hands, which would soon be stained with his blood, moving with a steady and practiced grace. She would listen to him talk about his day at the office, her mind a million miles away, lost in the dark and twisted fantasy of a life without him. She would make love to him, her body a willing and treacherous vessel of deception, her heart as cold and hard as a stone. The guilt, which had once been a constant companion, had been replaced by a strange and unsettling sense of detachment. She was an actress in a play of her own making, her life a stage, her emotions a carefully crafted illusion. Julian was her director, her co-conspirator, his voice a constant presence in her ear, whispering words of encouragement, of reassurance, of a love that was worth any price. He was the anchor in her storm-tossed sea of emotions, the steady hand that guided her toward the dark and treacherous shore of murder. The final piece of their plan fell into place with a surprising and, to Amelia, almost comical ease. The tiles in their master bathroom, the very tiles that would soon serve as a makeshift tomb for her husband, had been a source of contention for months. They were old, cracked, and an unsightly shade of avocado green. Richard, in his typical procrastinating fashion, had been putting off the renovation for as long as he could. Amelia, with a newfound and chillingly convincing enthusiasm, announced that she was going to tackle the project herself. She presented it as a form of therapy, a way to channel her nervous energy into a productive and creative outlet. Richard, relieved to be absolved of the responsibility, had readily agreed. "That's a great idea, honey," he had said, his voice filled with a genuine and, to Amelia, almost pathetic admiration. "You're so creative. I'm sure it will look amazing." The irony of his words was not lost on her. The bathroom, the very room where they had once shared intimate moments, was about to become the site of his murder, and he was unwittingly, even enthusiastically, complicit in its preparation. The tools and materials for the renovation were purchased, the new tiles a pristine and sterile white, a stark contrast to the dark and bloody deed they were about to conceal. The stage was set, the actors in place, the final act of their suburban tragedy about to begin. On the eve of the murder, Amelia stood in the doorway of the master bathroom, the newly purchased tools laid out on the floor like surgical instruments. The room was cold, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread. For a fleeting moment, A flicker of her old self, of the woman she had once been, broke through the icy facade of her resolve. A wave of nausea washed over her, the enormity of what she was about to do threatening to suffocate her. She saw Richard's face in her mind, his kind and gentle eyes, the smile that had once made her heart soar. She saw her children, their innocent faces a painful reminder of the life she was about to destroy. But then she thought of Julian, of his passionate embrace, of the life he had promised her. She thought of the years of quiet desperation, of the suffocating emptiness of her marriage. The flicker of doubt was extinguished, replaced by a cold and unwavering resolve. The beautiful wife on Maple Lane, the devoted mother, the architect of a seemingly perfect life, had completed her transformation. She was no longer a victim of her circumstances. She was the architect of her own destiny, a destiny that would be built on a foundation of lies, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. The suburban dream was about to die, and in its place, a nightmare of her own making was about to begin. The day of the murder dawned with an eerie and unsettling stillness. The sky was a canvas of muted grays, the air thick and heavy with unspoken intentions. Amelia moved through the morning with a chilling and robotic precision, her actions a carefully rehearsed dance of deception. She made breakfast for the children, her hands steady, her voice a calm and reassuring melody. She kissed Richard goodbye as he left for work, the touch of her lips against his cheek a cold and final betrayal. The house, once a symbol of her suburban dream, now felt like a tomb, the silence a deafening roar in her ears. She spent the day preparing, her every action a step closer to the abyss. She laid out the plastic sheeting on the bathroom floor, the crinkling sound a jarring and discordant note in the quiet of the house. She sharpened the knife, its blade a sliver of cold, hard steel, a harbinger of the violence to come. Julian arrived in the late afternoon, his presence a dark and foreboding shadow in the sterile perfection of her home. He was a man transformed, his usual easy charm replaced by a grim and steely resolve. He had brought a change of clothes, a small but significant detail that spoke volumes about the premeditated nature of their crime. They did not speak of what was to come, their silence a shared and unspoken understanding. They were two actors in a macabre play, their roles rehearsed, their lines memorized. They were partners in a crime that would forever bind them together, their love story rewritten in the blood of an innocent man. Richard came home at his usual time, his briefcase in one hand, a bouquet of flowers in the other. It was their anniversary, a fact that had, in the chaos of her double life, completely slipped Amelia's mind. The sight of the flowers, a vibrant splash of color in the monochromatic landscape of her impending crime, was a cruel and unexpected twist of the knife. "Happy anniversary, honey," he said, his voice filled with a genuine and unsuspecting warmth. The words were a dagger to her heart, a painful reminder of the man she was about to destroy. For a fleeting moment, she faltered, the carefully constructed walls of her resolve threatening to crumble. But then she saw Julian, lurking in the shadows of the hallway, his eyes a cold and insistent command. The moment of doubt passed, replaced by a chilling and unwavering determination. The rest of the evening was a surreal and nightmarish blur. They ate dinner together, the anniversary flowers a silent and mocking centerpiece on the table. Amelia played the part of the doting wife, her laughter a hollow and brittle sound in the charged atmosphere of the room. Richard, oblivious to the storm that was about to break, spoke of their future, of the plans he had for their life together. After dinner, Amelia lured him to the master bathroom, her voice a seductive and treacherous whisper. She told him she had a surprise for him, a special anniversary gift. He followed her, his eyes filled with a trusting and unsuspecting love. The moment he stepped into the bathroom, the carefully orchestrated plan was set into motion. Julian emerged from the shadows, his movements swift and silent. The attack was brutal and merciless, a shocking and violent end to a life that had been defined by its quiet and unassuming goodness. Amelia watched, her body frozen, her mind a numb and detached observer. The man who lay bleeding on the floor, the man whose life was ebbing away with each passing second, was a stranger to her. He was no longer her husband, the father of her children. He was an obstacle, a problem that had been solved. The aftermath of the murder was a gruesome and surreal tableau. The pristine white tiles of the bathroom were now stained with the crimson evidence of their crime. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood, a smell that would forever haunt Amelia's dreams. They worked together in a grim and silent partnership, their actions a macabre and synchronized dance of concealment. They wrapped Richard's body in the plastic sheeting, his form now a shapeless and unrecognizable bundle. They cleaned the bathroom with a frantic and meticulous precision, erasing every trace of the violence that had just occurred. The most chilling and audacious part of their plan was yet to come. The new tiles, the ones that Richard had so enthusiastically approved of, were to be his tomb. They mixed the mortar, the grating sound of the trowel against the bucket, a jarring and unsettling rhythm in the quiet of the night. They laid the tiles one by one, their hands working with a steady and unwavering purpose. As she pressed the final tile into place, entombing her husband in a cold and silent grave, a strange and unsettling sense of calm washed over Amelia. There was no guilt, no remorse, only a profound and chilling sense of relief. The obstacle had been removed, the problem solved. She was free. The next morning, with her husband buried beneath the newly tiled floor of their master bathroom, Amelia Hawthorne did the most audacious and chilling thing of all. She called the police and reported him missing. Her performance was flawless, a masterclass in deception. She was the distraught and worried wife, her voice choked with a carefully manufactured panic. She told the police that Richard had gone out for a run the previous evening and had never returned. She spoke of his predictable routines, of his unwavering devotion to his family, of the utter inexplicability of his disappearance. The police, initially sympathetic, soon became suspicious. There were inconsistencies in her story, small but significant details that didn't add up. Her calm and composed demeanor, so at odds with the frantic and desperate wife she was pretending to be, raised a red flag. The investigation began, and the carefully constructed world that Amelia had built on a foundation of lies and murder began to crumble. The police, with their relentless questioning and their forensic expertise, were a force that she had not anticipated. They were a pack of wolves, circling their prey, their instincts telling them that something was terribly wrong in the pristine and perfect house on Maple Lane. The affair with Julian, her secret obsession, was the first thread to be pulled. A nosy neighbor, a forgotten text message, a slip of the tongue during a police interview. The details were insignificant, but the outcome was catastrophic. The affair, once her secret and thrilling escape, was now a motive, a damning piece of evidence in the case against her. Julian, the man she had killed for, the man she had believed to be her partner in crime, was the first to betray her. Faced with the overwhelming evidence against him, he confessed, his carefully constructed facade of love and devotion crumbling under the weight of his own self-preservation. He painted Amelia as the mastermind, the seductress, the Black Widow who had lured him into her web of deceit and murder. He was the victim, he claimed, a pawn in her deadly game. His betrayal was a blow more devastating than any physical assault. The love she had believed to be so grand and epic was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion, a tool of manipulation used to achieve his own selfish ends. The man she had sacrificed everything for had, in the end, sacrificed her to save himself. With Julian's confession, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. The police, armed with a search warrant and a new and chilling theory, returned to the house on Maple Lane. The newly tiled bathroom, the one that Amelia had so proudly presented as a testament to her creative talents, was now a crime scene. The sound of the jackhammer breaking through the pristine white tiles was a death knell for Amelia's carefully constructed world of lies. The discovery of Richard's body, his form a grotesque and tragic testament to her betrayal, was the final and irrefutable proof of her guilt. The trial was a media circus, the story of the beautiful wife and the fitness trainer a sensational and cautionary tale that captivated the nation. Amelia, the woman who had once been the envy of her neighborhood, was now a monster, a modern-day Medea. Her face splashed across the front pages of every newspaper. She sat in the courtroom, her face a mask of cold and emotionless detachment. She listened as the prosecution laid out the sordid details of her affair, of her meticulous planning, of the brutal and cold-blooded murder of her husband. She listened as Julian, the man she had once loved with a desperate and all-consuming passion, testified against her, his words a final and bitter betrayal. She was found guilty, her sentence a lifetime in prison, a fitting and just end to a life that had been destroyed by a toxic cocktail of passion, resentment, and a chilling and insatiable desire for more. The house on Maple Lane, the once perfect symbol of the suburban dream, now sits empty, a silent and haunting reminder of the tragedy that unfolded within its walls. The manicured lawn is overgrown, the porch swings still, the windows dark and lifeless. It is a house with a secret, a house with a story that serves as a chilling and cautionary tale about the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most perfect of lives. It is a story about a beautiful wife, a charismatic fitness trainer, and a husband who was buried under a pristine and sterile layer of white tiles, a final and tragic testament to a love that had turned to hate, a dream that had turned into a nightmare.